Welcome back to Let Glory Shine. I'm your host, Martha Glory, and I have a really fabulous guest today, Brooke Deanne. But before we jump into that, this is a really, really special episode for me. If you've been following my journey, you know that I have been doing an episode a week for the last year, and I've had such a blessing of a time getting to interview inspiring people and motivating people and people doing really great things from a place of their testimony, the things that they've been through, the pain that they've experienced, and really doing cool things with that pain and healing from it. But all good things come to an end, and I have made the decision that today is my last interview. And so I'm so excited to share this particular interview because if you know my story, know that I grew up in a cult, in a religious cult, and I escaped at age 26. And my guest today also spent time in a cult. And so I'm excited to like make a full circle moment with this show and get to interview somebody that has a very similar experience to the one that I share. So I want to welcome to the stage Miss Brooke, and let's jump into it.
Thank you so much for letting me be here. And honestly, it's kind of an honor that I'm in this full circle moment with you. So I feel very special to be here and, obviously, share my story, but also it's more about this, it's less about the story. It's more about the fact that this is stuff that needs to be spoken about, right? Because we need to be able to expose these systems for what they are. So I'm excited to start this discussion. You just let me know where you want me to begin.
Yes. Again, thank you for being here. And it's interesting to me that there are so many cults out there. If you have done research, you know that there's over 5,000 cults in the world. 3,000 of them are here in the United States, if not more. And then there's a lot of underground ones that nobody ever hears about or talks about.
Mhm.
And so it's always fascinating to me why more people aren't talking about their cult experiences. And often, what I have found, it's because of fear. It's because they've been alienated. It's because they're isolated. It's because they're scared to come out against the group. They've been threatened. All of those, brainwashing and control has been their lives. And so, oftentimes, when people get out of a cult, they're just like, let me just start my life over and let me forget that I ever was in a cult and let me just move on. And
Yeah.
that was for sure my experience at age 26 getting out of my cult. I was like, I never want to think about that again. I never want to relive or rehash any of the things that happened to me, the trauma that I experienced. I'm going to move on with my life and create a better life. And unfortunately, all of that baggage, all of that pain, all of that trauma follows you. And
Mhm.
eventually you have to deal with it. And for me, it really came to a bubbling head 14 and a half years ago or so when I was forced to have to look at my pain. I was forced to have to look at my trauma and I was forced to do something about it and start this healing journey that I've been on. And so I'm really interested for you. What was that experience for you when you got out? First of all, I'd like to hear a little bit about your in story, and then we'll talk about how you got out and what your experience was. And were you like, I'm done, I never want to look back, and I just want to just dive headfirst into this new life that I get to have?
So I resonate with a lot of what you just said, honestly. We'll get to that. I will backtrack a little bit and I'll talk a little bit about while I was inside the system. Um, I was born in, so I was third generation. So, I mean, I didn't really have a choice. Like, this was what our family had been doing for a while. And so it was all my parents knew too. And when you're a young child and your parents come to you and they're like, listen, this is the story of the Bible, and this is the story of your existence, and this is all you get to know, and this is what you have to do in order to be like live, well, then you do not question it,
Right.
right? You were like, okay, mom and dad, I will comply, I will do whatever I can. And you take on, this is the story for so many, you take on that good girl complex, that, that personality, that identity that is, okay, I will obey, I will do as I'm told. And inside my family system, that was very real for me as well. My father was very narcissistic tendencies, really wanted to control. I saw kind of the dynamic play in between my mother and my father, where it was like my mom was very suppressed. She had to keep her head down, do as she was told, as they told us in the religion, right? That was women are to not have a voice,
Meek,
and
be meek. Yep.
that's right. Be meek. You're supposed to like listen and obey your husband. He is the head of you, okay? And then above that is Jesus, okay? But your husband, man, he's the boss
Yeah.
of you. And my mother very much played that role, and I watched her do it. And even as my mother, you know, navigated life, I just saw how she suppressed herself. Like my father would be, he would say demeaning or belittling things to her, and not like outright abusive stuff that I would see, but just things that would make her cry and she wouldn't be able to say anything. I'd see her like hold it in and not say anything, and as a young girl, I'm just, I'm soaking all this in. I'm watching this. I'm watching my parents fight all the time. I'm feeling very unsafe, very early on in my childhood. So I had a lot going on inside the family system, if you will. And then as I grew up, I believed all the stories. All the programming came really from the publications. We were not allowed to look outside of those publications.
Or
So
question.
that's right. Or not, and yeah, we're not allowed to question. No, 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 no. Yeah, I learned that very early on. As I started to be I was a very curious child. I kind of always wanted to know things, and understand things. And when things started to not make sense to me, it really was the paradise, or what we were promised, the paradise earth. We were always told that, well, if we make one of us makes it and the other part of the family doesn't make it, we won't remember them. We're not going to be sad because we're going to be like perfect and everything's going to be okay. Well, as a little girl, I'm like, whoa, 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 wait a second. If I make it into the paradise and God destroys you guys, you're telling me I'm not going to be sad? Well, in that moment, as a little girl, I'm feeling sadness. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be there without my mom and dad.
Yeah.
And so I'm asking these questions, and my parents are like not able to answer them. And my father was just, he would get kind of irritated with me and agitated that I was even asking the questions. And he's like, that's just the way it is. Like, just basically sit down, shut up. Like, we don't care how this makes you feel. Like, this is just the way it is. So early on, I just learned, okay, you don't question, you just go along with the flow. And as I got a little bit older, that's when I started to test the system. I didn't realize it then, but there was a part of me that hated not being able to be like the rest of the children in the group. When I went to school, I saw other children acting completely different than me, being able to celebrate holidays, being able to participate in birthdays, and I'm not allowed to do these things. And then they asked me to come over and play with them. And I'm like, I can't. I can't play with you because you're not a Jehovah's Witness. As a little girl, that didn't make sense to me. It never sat right with me. And I hated not belonging. So as I got a little bit older, I was like, well, I want to be like the rest of the kids. So I started dating boys that were outside of the religious system, and getting caught, getting in trouble. My parents just calling me the rebellious child. Like, we don't know what to do with you. We don't understand what's wrong with you. Like, I was always getting this messaging of like, you're broken. Like, we want to take you back because you're broken and you're not like all the other religious, studious girls that are examples. And that messaging in itself just made me be like, man, I guess there is something wrong with me. Like the gaslighting that was happening within my own family system, like, and what was being told to us by the religion is like, well, if you're not conforming, if you're not obeying, then you know what? You're just sinful and you're going to have to be punished. You have to have consequences. I feel like you're resonating with this. So I'm gonna let you break in if you're hearing something you want to talk about.
All of it, literally all of it. The gaslighting, the
Yeah.
never belonging anywhere you go. I felt like
Yeah.
I didn't belong in the group and I didn't belong outside. I didn't belong in the group because I didn't agree with
Mhm.
the things that we were taught, that we weren't allowed to have relationships with extended family because they weren't part of the group. They would take us away, right? And then I didn't feel part of the outside world of the kids that I went to school with because, well, I wore dresses all the time. I wore skirts, I wore blouses. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I wasn't allowed to cut my hair. Allowed to wear jewelry, right? Like, so I didn't feel like I belonged from a very early age. I didn't feel like I belonged in either world. And yes, that messaging of if you would just obey, you would find peace, you would find
Yes.
joy, you would understand that everything is easy. And my
Mhm.
little brain was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so girl, everything
Yeah.
you're saying, yes.
You understand because I didn't feel like I belonged in the system or outside of it either. I really didn't. I literally felt like I was an alien from another planet that got dropped onto this earth. And I
In the
was
wrong family.
yeah, I'm like, I'm in the wrong family. I'm in the wrong world. Like, what happened? Like,
Yeah.
I just remember like feeling like that I don't know where I fit in. And that has been such a big story my whole entire life. Um, I mean, it's still to this day, I feel like like there's that too. I'm like, well, where do I really belong? Right. And it's still like learning that my sense of belonging is really just within me. Like, finding safety
Yeah.
inside of myself. And that's
Yeah.
really, that's the healing journey in itself. But I mean, as a young girl, these things started to happen where I started to question my father's like, control. I started to be, there was something that he was crushing inside of me that said, I will not conform. I didn't know it at the time, but looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, no wonder I was a fighter. I wasn't rebellious. I was fighting against a system that I didn't belong in because I was never meant to be controlled. That's not my human nature. That's not who I
Yeah.
am at the core, right? And so, no wonder I was, such a spunky little fiery person that said, no, I don't care how much you try to silence me. So that happened. And then as I kind of evolved and my parents, just really continued to restrict me, I ended up finding a boy in the religion and falling in love. You know the story, right? And as a young girl, like I'm 15, 16 years old, well, we end up committing fornication, which is a big no-no. We have sex before marriage. Yeah, I know it is. It's a big deal, right? And it's a big deal in these type of systems. So this is a big sin. So this sin now has to be put before the elders, if you will. So three men take you into a back room and they basically violate every boundary that there is in the book. And they want you to tell them in every sordid detail of what you did, how many times you did it, where you did it, what kind of sexual act it was. I hope I can talk about all this in here. Um,
Absolutely.
but so they're asking you for all of these details, and I'm just feeling violated this whole experience, right? Here I'm 16 years old, shocked I'm even doing this. Like it feels like an outer body experience. And then they read you scriptures from the Bible that talk about how basically you are a harlot, a prostitute, because you're doing this before marriage.
Defiled. Yep.
Defiled,
Yep.
disgusting.
Yep.
Um, it's horrific. And
Yep.
then they say, well, we're going to pray over this, and then God is going to tell us if you need the punishment or not. Well, of course, they come back and they tell me I need to be punished, which I was like so happy. It was like, yes, punish me. Great. I don't even want, I was just like pissed off I even had to be here. And so they told me I was getting disfellowshipped, which means that you're outcast from the system. You can come to the congregation or the spiritual gatherings, but no one can look at you, no one can talk to you. You are treated like a leper, basically. Like that's basically the punishment. I laugh about this now, but this was absolutely,
Oh, I know.
it was awful when I was a young girl, right? Like I was isolated for almost a year. So I didn't have my friendships inside the system. I couldn't be outside the system. And my parents very much made it very clear that I was not allowed to see this boy again. Well, the rebellious spirit that I was continued to try to see this boy. And the more that I did that, the more my parents constricted me, like I was under surveillance all the time. I couldn't be near a phone. I couldn't go away. I couldn't go about anywhere by myself. And so they decided to finally put a restraining order against this boy. Um, and so I gave up. I said, well, my parents win. And I just decided to be the good girl again. I was like, okay, I want to get my parents' approval again. I really wanted to get my father's approval. I was like, gosh, what can I do to just make him love me already? I was an elder's daughter, so it was like he really just wanted me to conform. He wanted me to be the perfect little spiritual example. And so I tried that on for a while. I tried that on for a while, left the boy alone, until I was about 18. And he was always in the back of my mind. And then when I was 18, I decided, you know what, I really want to see him. And so I reached back out. Of course, he wasn't far. I mean, we still lived in the same state. It was a small circle of Jehovah's Witnesses. So I heard what he was doing and who he was hanging out with and all of these things. And so we reconnected. And the rest is history because I decided that I wanted to marry him. So we eloped. We got married and completely pissed my parents off, of course. And they didn't talk to me for about 5 years after that. About 6 years. They did not want anything to do with me because I did that. So long story short, I find out very quickly that in the marriage that my husband has really, he's just the carbon copy of my father. I recreated a pattern. I married into exactly what I was trying to escape from, not knowing. We got in our first fight like 2 weeks after our marriage, and he tried to suffocate me with a pillow. And in that moment, I was fighting for my life, obviously. And then when he finally let me up for a breath of air, I just didn't know what to do. Like I ran away from him. I was trying to make some sense of like, okay, what just happened? Of course, he came back, said, I'm sorry, please, 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 please forgive me. I don't know why I did that. I'll never do it again. Famous last words. Well, I stayed in that cycle for 17 years. Same story, same, different instances that were happening inside of the marriage, the fights, the lack of love, the fear that he created, the control. It was all the same manipulation and tactics that were used in the cult, but also in the inside of this relationship. So I'm like, I was in the cult, but I was also in the cult of one
Yeah.
in existing inside of this system, not knowing what I was really existing in because the religion also told me I needed to stay. God hates a divorcing. God hates it. And then when I did have a way out because he did commit adultery, um, he made his way back in. And then I wasn't free to marry anymore because once you sleep with your husband again, then they say you cannot be free. You're not free once you do that. You cannot divorce him now. And that's their rule. And so then I was trapped again. And so I just stayed in that cycle for so long until I finally started to wake up when I had a very kind of, I wouldn't say she wasn't an abusive friend, but she was controlling, manipulative, and jealous. Very huge narcissistic traits. And I started to see the patterns in her and how she was treating me. And then I started to study it. I started to study narcissism. Like, never had thought about doing that before. Wasn't allowed to look at outside information, wasn't, allowed to critically think or any of those things. Well, that started to open things up for me because I had an epiphany. As I started studying narcissism, I was like, oh, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in a relationship with one. I'm in an abusive relationship. And that made me like start to like kind of sift through things and start to look at things differently. Well, in the meantime, my then husband, he woke up inside of the cult. Like he started to see that it was a cult and he started to look at the child sex abuse cases and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going on." And so then he started to look into the doctor and all these other things. Well, he came to me one day and was like, "We're in a cult. You got to look at everything. Look at this. They're literally covering up child sex abuse cases. Look, I have all the proof, right? He shows me the proof. He shows me the people that own and operate Jehovah's Witnesses being on the stand and lying and making up stories and about, how their system even works. And at first I did what I was trained to do. I told him, no, you're crazy. Satan's got a hold of you. You need to stop looking at that stuff. Jehovah will take care of it. Jehovah God will take care of it. I did exactly as I was programmed to do. I defended my faith. I fought back. And then I realized very quickly as he started to kind of like just he kept nudging me. In the meantime, we're in the process of getting a divorce, right? I finally said this is no more. I won't do this anymore. Um, and it took him actually putting a knife to my throat for me to finally be like, I'm done. Like, I've got to move on. So, as we're kind of untangling from our own trauma bonded relationship, right? The push and pull dynamic of him wanting to come back and me not wanting to leave because I'm afraid, right? And he's afraid. And this back and forth is just wild when you've been in a trauma bonded relationship. And it's so hard for each of you to get out and like untangle your energy from the other one. So as we're playing this dynamic out, this dance, if you will, that's when he started to show me other things about the doctrine. And that's when it started to really like something inside of me, my intuition just kicked on. And I couldn't find really the ability to understand it completely, but I knew I felt that it wasn't okay anymore. I knew it didn't resonate anymore. I knew it didn't align with anything inside of me. And my body was literally like, no, we're not going in that space anymore. We're not going in that kingdom hall. We're not going to be around those people. I even had men reaching out to me before I was even legally divorced, elders that were like, I would love to marry you. I'm interested in marrying you, like literally lining up at the door. And I was like, well, I could pretend, I could fake this because then I keep my family, then I keep my friends, then I keep my life the way that it is. And then I actually finally get my father's approval. He's always wanted me to marry an elder. Like there's like this going on inside of me. And then there's this other part of me that's being like, hell no. Like it's like we're not, no, 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 no. Like do not do it. And so I decided to listen to the other part of me and I jumped into the unknown and really had no idea what that looked like on the other side of this. I just knew my life was going to change. I knew that I would lose everybody. I knew that my family would start to look at me differently, and it happened so fast, faster than I could actually, faster than I could even really like make sense of it. Like the minute my friends started to see that I wasn't going to the spiritual meetings, they started to look at me like I literally had come down with a serious disease. Like I was plagued.
Yep.
I was plagued. I was like I had the Satan plague, and now I was worldly. That's what they
Yeah.
call it. And I have now the hooks from Satan have been into me, and now yeah, they might get the plague that I have. So they stop calling, they don't write, they erase you from your life. And it happened so fast I wasn't ready. And then my parents and the family that was still in started to treat me that way. They started to tell me I was a bad mother for not taking my boys to the Kingdom Hall. They started to treat me differently, look at me differently, love me. Like the love was just like they literally
Pulled
acted like
away.
I was like
Yep.
they couldn't touch me, right?
Yep.
I was dirty. Um, and it was wild. It was, and I wasn't prepared for I mean, I knew it was going to happen,
Experience.
but I wasn't prepared for it. No one can be prepared for this.
Yeah. Um, wow. So literally everything you experienced is identical to what I experienced, like you lose everything that you ever knew. But
Mhm.
that I love how you talk about that there was that moment where you had to listen to your gut or listen to your programming. And I remember that moment so clearly as well, that something was inside of me was like, there's a reason why this has never felt good to you. There's a reason why this is like you've never been the good kid. You've never been able to follow blindly, right? Like there's something. And of course, I was always attributing it to being, I'm bad, I'm bad. Satan's got me. Like I'm sinful. All of those things. But now looking back, I'm like, no, that was God saying, this is not my way. If this was my way, it would come from a place of love, not
Hmm.
fear, not control, not, name calling, not right. And when you shared that story about when you got caught having sex and had to go to sit with the elders, I had the exact same thing happen to me, but I was 12.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I remember sitting on that red carpet in the back room and Cult Man asking me all of these perverted questions about how it felt and what position and did he put it in my mouth and all. And I
Yes.
remember as a 12-year-old going, is why does he need to know all of this if I'm going to be punished anyway? Like, why do I have to relive this twice? Because for me, it was molestation. I
Mhm.
had it wasn't consensual, right? And so I'm like, why do I have to live through this again? And he was sitting next to me. The guy that did this to me is sitting next to me.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
have to answer all the questions. And looking back, I'm just like, he was so perverted.
Hmm.
He was doing these things with other girls, with other women, with right? Like, and I looked at him as this, man of God, as the prophet, at like he was pure. It was just him and his wife. And then to find out years later he was raping people and having them have abortions and all of these things. And it's like, ugh, now I know why that felt ugh to me.
Of course. Your body was already telling you, and that's what I always tell everybody. Your body
Trust.
already
Yeah.
knows before your logical mind can make sense
Catches
of it.
up. Yes.
Yeah, it's
So,
always a
so
little bit
true.
behind. Your body already knows what is not what is a no for you, what is
Yes.
not safe, what is like your body's already telling you, and that's like you feel it. You feel it
Yep.
in your gut. Like
Yep.
it's it's just been so suppressed. We just
Yes.
ignored it. We were taught to ignore it.
Yes. So
Yeah.
how long have you been now separated from the fellowship?
Yeah, so it's been 10 years
Okay.
almost for me. I think the biggest piece of this, like leaving, I left, right, had when really just jumped into the unknown. I was really, really struggling with a lot of complex PTSD, severe panic attacks, like so much, having had so much years of abuse beyond just the religious programming and the religious trauma, it was like my body was just like spiraling out of control, like not really knowing what to do with, with kind of detoxing from both systems, if you will. So I really quickly went to therapy. I started to try to make sense of my experience, but I found I was getting very stuck. The therapist that I was working with, did know nothing about religious trauma. She didn't know anything about being in a narcissistic abusive relationship. She just read from a textbook what she was trying to give me, and she had zero lived experience. And so I really found quickly, don't do that. Do not get a therapist that doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, that just read a
Yep.
textbook and then is now trying to support you. That is not support.
Yes.
That's not going to help you. Find a therapist that understands. So I found one later on that was an ex-Mormon. So she could really understand the religious trauma pieces and all of those dynamics and also toxic relationships. And so that really started to help support me. But my I think my spiritual awakening really happened in 2020 when my ex-husband died. So he died tragically from a drug overdose. And that like catapulted me into a whole different trajectory because until then, I hadn't really looked at the religious stuff. I kind of had like thrown to the side everything that had happened to me because I was just trying to put my head down, take care of my two children,
Survive.
single mom, like, and make sense of her world. And then it was like, and then he died. And then I was like, oh my God, I have no sense of certainty anymore. I thought I knew where we go when we die, and now I don't know. I had no frame of reference for anything because I realized quickly, I was like, oh my God, I lost all my beliefs. I don't know what I believe anymore. And then when he died, it was like the grief like hit me like I don't even know how to explain it. Like it hit me in the chest. The pain was so great. Um that I didn't really know how to make sense of it. And then seeing my children grieve, it was like just another layer of this deep grief. Because even though I'd experienced abuse from him, I also had known him the majority of my life. So, regardless of what he had done to me, we also had shared wonderful, beautiful experiences together. And plus, we had two children together. And so, some people looked at me and they're like, well, why are you sad? He was your abuser. Like, well, I'm human. I'm human. And regardless of what he did, there was still loss that happened. There was still a loss for my children.
Yeah.
And so that really awakened me to even start to become a deep seeker of what is truth anymore. What what sense can I make of this reality? Um, and that just started to kind of change everything for me again. And I kind of deep dived into all kinds of things. I tried on some new, I think I like to say cult hopped. I found I found new age spirituality and that extreme I found resonated for me because it was like the opposite of Jehovah's Witnesses, but still had the same language. It just was changed, right? It just different a little bit, but still same language, still energy. To still say that still the same energy. So I was just taking off one garment and putting on another, but same look, same feel. And that was when I was like, okay, wait, this doesn't make sense either. And so I was really having to figure out what did make sense for me. So that was kind of the process of me really deconstructing from really delusional, like spiritual spaces, distorted views of ways of trying to create spirituality that people are doing that is still so harmful and hurting people.
I love that you called it the cult hop because
Yeah.
yeah, right? We're trying to fill a void and trying to fill a hole.
Mhm.
And I I did the same thing, right? Because you want something to believe in. I've always believed that there was something bigger than myself. I always knew that there was a creator, right? But I was trying to make it feel good to my gut, right? Like, and I wanted to figure out for myself versus hearing something from a pulpit or from a, state, whatever. I wanted to figure out for me. And so I tried out all these other things. And then eventually I was like, okay, I got to sit with me. I got to ask myself these questions. I have to ask me what I believe, right? I had exposed myself to Buddhism, to spirituality, to metaphysics, to, uniform Christianity, to non-denominational Christianity, right? I had exposed myself, Judaism. I had exposed myself all to all these things, but none of them felt like they were sitting in a place of authenticity, of like, oh, that's it. That's when I feel connected, right? And so when I stood back from all of those things and was like, okay, if I have to get really, really, really like layman's terms, but like, what do I really believe? I believe there's one God. I believe that I come from God. I believe God is love, right? And I had to start going down of and questioning myself.
Mhm.
What do I believe about God? Right? And how do all these other things fit into it? And what I realized is it's exactly what you said. All of these things are pulling from the same things and calling them different things.
Yes.
They're
Yeah,
all just wearing a different mask, but they're the same thing. It's control.
exactly. And
It's
fear.
believe that we are the chosen people and everybody else is going to hell.
Yes, it's fear. It's all fear.
Right.
It's all has the same underlying story, the
Right.
same underlying fear, right? So Jehovah's Witnesses, it was, okay, well, if you don't obey and comply with this, well, your God's going to destroy you at Armageddon. You're not going to live forever. And then in New Age spirituality, it's like, well, if you have a negative thought, guess what's going to happen? You're going to create negativity in your life. And you can only do love and light. You can't think negative thoughts. Like, something like it's all fear. Like, okay, then you're like, oh my gosh, I can't think a negative thought. Like, and then you become obsessive about not thinking a negative thought because you don't want something negative to happen in your life. What it is it's ultimately what every religion or what spirituality community is trying to say is we know how to control reality. And we have the path on how you get to control that reality. When in essence, you have zero certainty or zero control over anything but yourself. And that is when you become what everybody wants to do is become enlightened because then you realize the name of the game is that you are simply meant to understand you and you alone and control your own thoughts, your own emotions, the way you react in the world or don't react, right? And the way that you treat others, right? All of these things, it's simple. Like we've like overcomplicated
Complicated.
it.
I say that all the time. It is really very simple when you get
Yes.
down to the nuts and bolts of what this human
Mhm.
existence, wearing this human meat suit for this short amount of time really
Yeah,
is all about, right? But we
completely.
want to complicate it. We want to make it feel like it must be complicated because, well, everybody's been telling me it's complicated. But
Yeah,
it's not.
exactly.
Get
Yeah.
in touch with self, rediscover who you were before all the bad things that happened to you,
Mhm.
right? And the identities that you took on from it, you have to release those, you have to work through those, you have to heal from those things so you don't create the generational curse to you, to your children, to your children's children, all of the things, right? But it starts with us. It starts with knowing and loving ourselves so much that we
Yes.
show up in that way in everything that we do. We become our own mirror. We become our own love. We become our own light. We become our own, right? Like getting in
Yeah,
touch with us and healing this and becoming the highest and best versions of ourselves is the biggest gift that we can give our children, biggest gift we can give the world.
for sure. Yeah, I think there's an evolution of consciousness happening right now. Right? We are conscious of things now that we were not conscious of things 20, 30
100%.
years ago,
Yeah.
right? We're seeing now how the way we have treated other human beings is playing out
Yep.
now, right? With the generations that have, come after that experience, where there was abuse, there was trauma, and now we're seeing it happen. And we're like, wait a second, we need to change. Now that we're getting more informed, we're actually becoming more intelligent as human beings and being able to actually see in real
Because we're
time.
evolving. We are
We're
evolving.
evolving. Yes, it's the evolution of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that is what is happening right now on the planet. It's why it feels a little scary because everybody's like, what's happening? A lot of things are being exposed, things are coming to the surface. Thus, why we're coming out of the side of cults and we're saying, this is not the way, this doesn't feel right, this doesn't feel like truth, this just doesn't feel okay, because our bodies are saying, we reject this because there's a higher intelligence that lives inside of us that knows
Yeah.
that's been given to us. That's the gift
It's our
of our human
birthright. Yep.
existence. Yeah, it's the gift of our human existence. And being able to actually recognize that now, people are saying, we're not doing this anymore. Like, this is crazy. This is why women are, I think, kind of waking up too in these relationships and being like, what in the hell is going on? And starting to finally actually realize they deserve something different.
Yep.
And I think that's really powerful because what that means is that, well, not only are we evolving, but now we get a second chance at a life where we get to actually thrive, not just survive.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes. So, what does that look like for you, Brooke?
yeah. For me, on the other side of this, it feels like, what I really have created for myself in my healing is being able to become extremely self-aware. So, what I've realized is that my system was operating on fear and fear alone because it had been pumped into me like since birth. Fear, 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 fear God, fear that Satan's coming to attack you. Fear your dad, fear the system, fear all of these things that were just felt like it was closing in on you, and recognizing that I had never understood what safety was. I had never understood what being feeling safe like was in my body. So I always tell people the first place you need to start when you leave these systems, whether that's an abusive relationship or that's a cult-like system, is to find safety. And that may sound so foreign to you because I know it did to me.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what safety felt like.
Yep.
I didn't understand.
Yep.
And so the only path to doing that is to find support, the right support that can show you and guide you through that process. And it takes time and consistency for that to happen inside of your body. Because what happens is while we can leave high control religion, we can leave abuse, we can leave whatever that was happening, well, our nervous system hasn't caught up. Like our mind knows we're gone, right? Like we know we're gone, but our nervous system is like, wait, we
Hijacked.
have been surviving and living in fear for me,
Yep.
it was 36 years of my life. We've been doing this for 36 years. Girl, we have to operate this way. So my body just thought that I was still
Yep.
inside of that element, right? And so I had to teach my body that I was safe.
Retrain your body, retrain your brain, retrain your nervous system,
Yes.
regulation,
Yeah.
deregulation versus regulation, right?
Hmm.
That was key. And for
Yeah.
me, understanding that I had had a hijacked nervous system since
Yeah.
birth because of fear, right? Our nervous
Yeah.
system is not built for that kind of cortisol, like our
No,
bodies aren't built to live in fear like that,
no,
for our whole lives. And so, but it gets used to it because we are resilient. Our bodies are resilient. Our nervous systems are resilient. So it can make anything normal because if it's all you've ever known, it's all you've ever known. How does your
exactly.
nervous system know there's anything else? And so when you get into something else, I would find that I could fake it for a short time and then I would
Mhm.
cause chaos just to give my nervous system
What it needed.
what it needed, which is
Yeah,
looking
same.
back, it's like,
Same, girl. I literally found the first safe partner I'd ever had my whole entire life. And I thought it was boring. So what did my nervous system say? Well, let's create some chaos because we need the thrill of the chaos. Because I'd never known that safety, it's not that it's boring. It's that that's what safety feels like. It feels
right,
like stability. It feels like presence. It feels like, you know what, I'm here.
calm.
Yes. And I'm like, my nervous system was like, wait, this doesn't match. This is not a match for our system. And so I had to unlearn those patterns. Like you said, I had to reteach my nervous system so that I could finally stop fighting what was actually happening for me in my current reality because my system was still trying to fight what was my old reality. And that I think is what I always like to talk about. That's the gap, right? That's the deconstruction process. That's the deconstructing from the old reality into the new reality. And that can feel very destabilizing. It feels very uncomfortable because it's so foreign. You don't really know, and you're kind of almost like, for me, I was gaslighting myself all the time. Like, well,
Yes.
is this real? Like, should I be, is he really actually safe? Like, oh my gosh, is he actually abusive? And I don't even know it. Like,
Yep.
I can't even say how
Can
much
I trust
gaslighting I was doing.
myself?
Yes, I just
That,
couldn't even trust
yes,
myself and
yes,
till my system finally felt safe enough to stop fighting it, And I think it takes time.
yeah,
It takes time. It takes a lot of personal development, a lot of inner work. Meditation was huge for me, just learning how to sit with stillness. I mean, my body did not like that. I
mm,
wanted to run, I wanted to go, I wanted to no, I wanted to be busy.
yeah,
But I saw how I was fighting just being present with myself and dealing with the emotions that were like, hey, can you finally feel me so I can be free of these already?
yeah,
And so the more that I made space for that, the easier it got, but it took a lot of time.
yeah, it did. And I feel like for me, and I hear this from your journey as well, that I thought I should have been able to heal faster.
Mm.
right? Because I was learning so much. Because once you dabble in and you start understanding the mind and you start understanding meditation and stillness and you gather all these tools, right? Because like I did EMDR and biofeedback and neurofeedback and hypnosis and craniosacral therapy and brain rewiring and brain mapping and right, like I like when I went in because I'm gonna heal this, I'm gonna fix this, I'm gonna feel better, right? And then I didn't implement. I just learned a whole bunch of stuff and didn't know why I wasn't fixed, why I was still
Mm-hmm.
chaotic, right? Why I was still trying to figure me out. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I got still with me and was like, oh, so I can't just show up and do these therapies every week. Like I got to implement in my real life,
Yes. I learned
right?
that the hard way. I learned that the hard way. So in my journey I found psychedelic assisted therapy. So, a lot of people are this is very controversial for a lot of people. There's also a lot of cult-like communities, running these psychedelic stuff. So you need to be able to
Yeah.
fine-tune what is a red flag and what is a green flag for someone that's able to assist for you. But it's what that really helped me to do is to actually learn that actually, no, I needed to integrate the teachings. So even when I was in, the psychedelic journey, really all it is a mirror of your own consciousness. And you now get the opportunity to handle what is being mirrored back to you.
Yeah.
But you have to integrate it afterwards because if you don't, you're learning nothing. And that's why people are such seekers. They will
Yeah.
continue to go into psychedelic
Yes.
journey after psychedelic
Yep.
journey after psychedelic journey
Yep.
because it's also an addiction. It can also
Yep.
be an addiction.
Yep.
And so they keep going back because they're like, well, I still haven't dealt with this pain. Like, please fix me. Like, they're wanting a quick fix. And
There
literally,
is
what I've
none.
learned from working with that beautiful indigenous medicines is that there is no quick
Yeah.
fix, girlfriend. Like they
No.
literally, I mean, I sat with ayahuasca and the medicine literally tells you there is no quick fix.
Mm-mm.
Like this, you don't
You got
need
to
to
do the
come,
work.
you gotta do the work and you
Yep.
don't need to come back
No.
and sit with me a million
No.
times. Just
No.
go out there and do the work. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty
Yeah.
simple. And if people would like you could do one journey
Yeah.
and ultimately change your whole entire life
Yeah.
if you just take that journey and integrate, integrate, integrate,
Yeah.
integrate.
Yeah.
Um, but people keep going back for more.
Yeah. I say this all the time is there's no quick fix and there's no pill to
Mm-mm,
fix trauma, to fix
mm-mm.
hurt, to fix identities, right?
No.
You have to do the work, and that takes time and that takes consistency. Speaking of time, we're out of time, Brooke, and I'm so sad because this it flew by like so fast. This is like so interesting to me that we never met before, and yet our stories are so similar. And that just proves to me over and over that there's so many people out there with our story. And that's why it's so important for us to share our stories on these types of programs, is because it gives somebody else permission to go, what? That's
Mm,
my story. She's telling my story. And
yeah.
that gives them that permission to be like, I'm not alone. There's somebody else that understands this. And hopefully it inspires somebody to take their next step on their healing journey. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for being my last guest for this show at this time. I hope at some other time I'll do this again. But thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing so vulnerably and honestly. And I'm proud of everything that you're doing. And girl, keep on, keep it on. I see that glow. I see that radiance. You're doing what you're meant to do. So thank you
Yeah.
for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here for my last Let Glory Shine episode. At least for now, I want to thank Prospera TV. I want to thank Elena Rodriguez for producing all of these shows over the last year. It has been an honor and a privilege to have a show on this channel, and I really look forward to the future. And I want to say thank you to all my guests over the last year. And as I always say, let glory shine and just know that you are loved. Good night.
Let glory shine from the ashes I rise. Every scar a story, every tear baptized. This is my freedom. This is your Prospera era, where dreams align with grace, abundance flows like rivers. You've stepped into your place. Rise, reign, and remember, you were born to shine. Welcome to your moment, Prospera, it's time.